graduate of San Diego State University.
This meeting is being recorded.
Where he received a Bachelor of Science degree in aerospace engineering. Tom also holds a master's in public administration with a specialization in public finance from California State University, Fullerton. Tom has over 35 years of experience in water engineering and municipal utilities. After finishing his undergraduate work at San Diego State University, he was hired by the city of Vernon near Los Angeles. At Vernon, he managed the city's water department as well as wastewater collections and stormwater management programs. In 1999, he began his tenure at Liverhane Municipal Water District as operations manager. At Liverhane Municipal Water District, Tom was instrumental in the construction and operation of an advanced membrane water treatment plant, which was the largest of its type in the world when it was originally completed. And that's actually where Tom and I first met each other. In 2005, Tom transitioned to the private sector, serving as vice president for business solutions at Nobel Systems, the GIS service provider. In 2007, Tom returned to the public sector as a Liverhane's operations manager. In 2014, Tom was hired as general manager of Rainbow Municipal Water District. So thank you, Tom, for spending some time with us today.
I'm feeling a little older now.
After all that, right?
Yeah. All right, well, thank you for having me, and I'll get over here and share my screen here. Let's see, there we go. This should work. All right, everybody seeing the slides, Net?
Yep.
All right, so today I'm going to be talking to you about changing water suppliers, and specifically wholesale water suppliers for Fallbrook and Rainbow, Fallbrook PUD and Rainbow MWD, from the Water Authority to Eastern Municipal Water District. It's been a long process here, but just some background, as Don indicated, Rainbow is about 80 square miles. We have, actually, this side's a little, we're a little over 9,000 ratepayers now, but it's still very rural and agricultural. And about 65% of our sales is for agricultural water. Fallbrook PUD is about 28,000 acres, or which is about 40 square miles, but we like to deal in different numbers. They also have about 9,000 ratepayers. They're about 30% agriculture, but they also have a fairly high poverty rate in Fallbrook. Somebody was saying at the LAFCO meeting yesterday that I know that Ann attended, that 75% of the kids are on free lunch programs in the schools there. But the cost of water, as everybody knows, water costs are going up, has really damaged our agricultural customers. It's bad enough for your single family home, but when you use a lot of water with an avocado grove, the cost of water becomes a real problem. So I think that one of the things to start on this discussion is at the beginning. So this is a map showing the Metropolitan Water District, which serves 7 counties from Ventura down to the Mexican border. But up until 1944, the San Diego County Water Authority didn't exist. And so the main pipelines that came into the county were built by the Navy during World War II. And so as the war was winding down and they could see that they were going to, things were going to move in a positive direction, in 1944, the Navy wanted to drop off the pipelines. Now, Metropolitan has already been established and owned the Colorado River Aqueduct and all the other pipelines in the other 6 counties, but they decided to form the San Diego County Water Authority to handle the pipelines that came into San Diego County. And so when they formed that, there was Rainbow was not a member of the Water Authority, and the San Diego County Water Authority does not serve the entire county. Like today, about a third of the geographic area of the county is served by the San Diego County Water Authority. But when they took the pipelines, they say, well, some of this is going to be Met's pipeline, and some of it will be the new Water Authority's pipeline. And it was clear that engineers did the work and not politicians, because they set the dividing line at the halfway point between San Jacinto, one end of the pipeline, and San Vicente Reservoir, the other end. And it just so turns out that halfway point is roughly around where Highway 76 is. So it's 6-7 miles inside the county. It's a little different on east side versus west side, but it's hard to tell here. The green area is Rainbow, the yellow one is Fallbrook, the county line is above us, and those red circles indicate our connections. So our connections, we have connections directly to Metropolitan's pipeline. We don't, now I have some connections on the Water Authority pipeline, but we don't use them primarily. We use our Metropolitan ones because it's cheaper. Another interesting factual matter was that in 1953, when Rainbow was formed, we went to the Water Authority to become a Water Authority member agency. And under the County Water Authority Act, which we'll talk about a little bit a little later as well, the conditions upon which when you annex into a county water authority are established. And we also had to annex into metropolitan, but there's rules on what you have to pay to get in. And we said, okay, we're ready. We have a check. Let's sign us up. And the water authority looked at it and said, no. You're going to have to pay us more than that, because when you get water to your land, the land will go up in value. The payment is based on the assessed valuation of the land. It's essentially a property tax repayment. And back in 1953, the Water Authority wanted to set aside the County Water Authority Act and charge us more than the law said. Well, Rainbow decided to say, well, forget that, and applied to Metropolitan to become a Metropolitan member agency instead. And Metropolitan said, sure, we'll start processing the paperwork. But then the Water Authority and Met started this big fight for several months back and forth. And the Water Authority finally relented and said, all right, you can come in using the terms of the County Water Authority Act. And 70 years later, something similar is happening now. So why are we looking to leave? We've been overpaying for infrastructure that provides no benefit to us. So if we look at that previous slide, you know, the Water Authority's pipelines go all the way basically to the Mexican border. And we don't use it. Like 80% of Rainbow's water, we never touch the Water Authority pipeline. And the other ones that we do right now, which we won't soon, we maybe use 1 mile of the pipeline. And we pay the same amount as people down south. Rainbow and Fallbrook have contributed almost $1 billion to the Water Authority over the years, resulting in about $250 million of assets, pipelines, building, pumps, things like that, that none of it serves us and all of it serves people down south. And so an economist we hired looked at it and they believe that we've overpaid about $50 million over the last decade. The rate increases in our area have been higher than in some of the urban areas, about 8% on average, mainly because the way the Water Authority rate structure penalizes people whose water consumption is going down. And the big problem is the Water Authority's made decisions that don't align with the needs of our customer base. You know, the urban areas down south are focused on biotech and tourism and things like that. And reliability is important to them, as it is to farmers. But to a farmer, reliability isn't any good if it puts you out of business based on the cost of it. And so there's a misalignment between how their rate structure works and decisions are made and how our folks are dealing with it. And so there is a law, as I said before, the County Water Authority Act has a law that outlines both how you join and then how you leave if you want. And within that law, it prescribes the payment. Now, the Water Authority, when they looked at that payment, they said, no, you got to pay us a lot more. And at one point said we have to pay them $1.2 billion to leave. They want us to pay for all the expected revenue they were going to get for the next 90 years up front, which is just insane. But the basic part here is that we're going to get the same water that comes from the same sources, whether Colorado River or State Water Project, from the same treatment plant in the Riverside County, the Skinner treatment plant, using the exact same pipelines. So the only thing that's going to change is who invoices us for the water. And so here's one of the big deals here. This starts at about 2000. This was a chart from the UT, I think late last year. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it looks at the cost of Metropolitan and the Water Authority, with the blue line being Metropolitan. And the note says that Eastern adds $11 per acre foot to the MWD price for the wholesale rate they offer their wholesale customers. They have other wholesale customers like us, like Rancho Water and Temecula, pays that $11 over an acre foot. And you can see around the mid 2000s up to 2010, the lines started to diverge, and that divergence is growing. And these are based on Water Authority's forecast and Met forecast that was put together by the UT. And you can see that differential getting greater and greater and greater. This is only about a year old, I think, and it's already gone over that. The current rate structure the Water Authority is working on, and I'll be voting on later this month, is even above that orange line. And so we're seeing some rapid escalation in costs that are really decimating our agricultural users. And here's one graph that shows the green line shows the price of water. The red line is Rainbow's demands, and the blue line is Fallbrook's demands. And you can see there's wet, dry year variations because we're agricultural. But as soon as that water price started ticking up, you see our demands start going down. this is something I learned in Econ 101 in college, the elasticity of demand, as price goes up, demand goes down. And so that's bearing out here in the water system as well. But the threat to agriculture is real, and the threat to our economy and to our environment is real. Over 10,000 acres of productive ag land has been taken out in our region over the last 15 years, and over 1 million trees lost, and a lot of jobs, and we're also lost among that. But in our area, in Rainbow, if you've ever been driven around in Rainbow or in Bonsall, you know, we don't have supermarkets. We don't have a single supermarket. We have one small kind of general store. We don't have an auto park, you know, where they're selling cars. We don't have a mall. We do have one 7-Eleven, so we got that. I think we have 13 signalized intersections at 80 square miles, but the agriculture industry is by far the only economic engine we have. And so the people who live there like living there because of the nature of the groves, and they're living amongst semi-rural agricultural areas. But an important fact, and the San Diego Food Alliance studied this a few years back, that the carbon capture from these trees that are lost is over 325,000 metric tons are not being captured now because of the loss of these trees. And as Ann may recall, one of the speakers yesterday calculated from his grove how many tons of carbon he sequesters every year. And then if he goes out of business, that carbon is just going up in the air. So I like to think of it as the cars going down I-15, all their exhaust comes out and our trees converted into guacamole. And so that's always a good result. So the Water Authority's made a lot of claims about how we're going to have a massive impact on their finances. The reality is, as calculated by an economist hired by LAFCO, is less than 2% of their gross revenues is going to be reduced. And the reality is, when you look at the Water Authority's budget, every year they do a budget, well, it's actually every 2 years, they're never within 5 or 6% up or down in their budget. You know, they say, all right, we think we're going to spend X. Well, they never hit X exactly. No one ever does. But the year-to-year variability based on weather and other things, it goes up and down all the time. Our impact is within their margin of error for their finances. And this is why LAFCO looked at it, one of the reasons, and found that, you know, yeah, it's an impact, but it's not a big deal. And now the impact of it is LAFCO is proposing that we pay an exit fee of $64 million to get out over 5 years. And so that would make zero impact on anyone else. You have to realize the Water Authority has a budget that's around $900 million, and that our leaving is going to decrease that by $12 million. So it's very, very small. And the Water Authority also claims that other districts will leave. If we go, then everyone will head for the doors. But that's just not possible. We're the only two agencies who have the metropolitan pipelines that would allow us to do it without constructing additional infrastructure. The closest other district is Valley Center, and they did look at it. But the cost to construct the pipelines would be enormous to build a parallel pipeline up I-15. Not to mention, a CEQA suit would come to say, hey, you didn't look at the alternatives because there's already a pipeline there. You can't build a new one when there's already one that serves the purpose. So the change also maintains water reliability for our areas. LAFCO analyzed it, we've analyzed it, Metropolitan's analyzed it, Eastern's analyzed it, everyone's analyzed it. Everyone agrees that the water reliability is fine. The Water Authority is fear-mongering people to think that it isn't. And as I think you're going to talk a little bit more about an indirect potable reuse project in Fallbrook, they've also recently completed their Santa Margarita River project, but Fallbrook's getting about half of their supply. But the other component here is that this actually improves the reliability for everyone who remains. If they don't have to serve us in some situation, everybody else has more reliable water. And so that has some value to them, but they discount that tremendously. So speaking of reliability, as you all recall, with our last drought that just ended when we had this crazy wet year, but during last year, 50 of the 58 counties in California were on mandatory water restrictions of some sort, but 8 were not. 7 of those 8 were served by Metropolitan, 8 is Imperial County. What this shows is that the investments that Met has made in reliability have proven to be just as effective as the reliability we have with Water Authority. The 3 driest years on record last year, there were no service cutbacks or allocations done by either Met in our service area or in the Water Authority. Metropolitan did have some areas that were served only by the State Water Project up in LA County, that had to do some cutbacks. But the Skinner service area, which includes Eastern Temecula, the Southwest Riverside County, has access to both Colorado and state project water, and there were no cutbacks there. So the LAFCO process, we filed our applications in March of 2020. And it went through an ad hoc committee that we had 13 meetings that had people from Sandag, the city of San Diego, all over the place. And then we finally had the first actual hearing yesterday that Ann was lucky enough to join. It took 7 hours, and they, at the end of the hearing, we had a motion and a second to approve the detachment. I was hoping to be sitting here today with a really massive hangover, but I'm not, sadly. But some of the members were a bit confused by some of the misdirection that the Water Authority has thrown at them at the last minute, and even a cryptic, weird email from the chair of Metropolitan, which was completely baseless, but it has them had them a little confused. So they decided to table it until August, so 2 more months until we can get them to get to a hearing. I believe that we're going to get successfully detach. It's just a matter of when and how much they're going to want to let us out. So the Water Authority, when we first met with them, and I met with them actually 4 years ago in May of 2019 to say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. We'd like to sit down with you and see if we can work something out where we're not going to get everything we want. You're not going to get everything you want, but we'll avoid a long, nasty, expensive, stupid public battle. And I said, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Well, a week after I met with them, the lawyer sent us a Public Records Act request demanding every communication we've ever had with Eastern and all this other stuff. And then the board voted to authorize $1 million for special attorneys to block our efforts. So we got to do this the dumb, long, expensive way. They also passed a resolution that they're worried about the customers of Fallbrook and Rainbow, as if our boards don't have the agency to think about our own customers. They don't want it to raise water bills elsewhere. And that one's really funny because the city of San Diego, who leads the Water Authority, if anybody's familiar with the Water Authority, it operates almost like Sandag. If the city of San Diego doesn't want it to happen, it doesn't happen. The city of San Diego is developing their own pure water San Diego project, which is great. But that, as LAFCO calculated, is going to have 4 times the negative impact on the remaining member agencies than detachment. And yet they're happy to do that to the rest of us. But boy, if we want to do something that might impact them 1 iota, they got a problem. They're also worried about their voting power at Metropolitan, which is a nutty thing. And they also want to have the vote be within the whole county, or at least the Water Authority service area, which the law, the County Water Act, is clear on that. And the legislature, gave the Water Authority full control. When you read how it is, full control. If somebody wants to join the Water Authority, the Water Authority board gets to set terms and conditions. But the legislature knew that if some point some member agency wanted to leave, it was probably because they weren't receiving the level of service that met their needs from the Water Authority. And so they did not, sorry, I apologize. My phone was not on silent, my goodness. They probably weren't getting the level of service, so they they requested. So they went ahead and gave the power to both the governing board, but with a confirmation election of the ratepayers in that area. And so the vote will be within Fallbrook and Rainbow. Now, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, the Water Authority and the city of San Diego sponsored bill, AB 530 from Assemblymember Berner, that gutted a climate change bill that was a methane emissions bill that she had, and 3 weeks ahead of the hearing changed it to require the election to be within the entire service area of the Water Authority. Now, this bill has just been introduced in the Assembly. I don't think it has any Senate support yet. It might. I'm not sure how it's going to go. It might be a 2-year bill. Either way, it's too late for ours because our process has already concluded at LAFCO, at least the administrative part of it. And so, but it's kind of a lousy deal. The city of San Diego wants to roll off, impose a ton of costs on the rest of the member agencies. But if somebody doesn't like that and wants to leave, they want to make sure they can't go unless the city of San Diego approves. The Water Authority launched a Stronger Together campaign, as this probably had a website and everything. They were trying to say, hey, we should stay together. And the reality is that we would be stronger financially, and our customers would be stronger financially with Eastern. So their claim that it would harm our ratepayers if MET increases rates in the future is based on them saying that, oh, they're going to have to build a bunch of pipelines to deal with the Bay Delta. And if some of you have been around long enough to remember the first term of Jerry Brown as governor, and the discussions around the peripheral canal and trying to deal with getting the state water project. You know, Pat Brown, his dad never quite finished it. There was that gap right there to get through the Delta. Could never quite get that done. They've been talking about that solution since the late 70s and still have done nothing. And it's likely going to have to happen at some point. But the thing about it is that the Water Authority will be subject to those costs as well. They sued Met over this particular item, went all the way to the California Supreme Court and lost. And so if Met has to spend a bunch of money to deal with that situation up there, we're going to pay for it whether we're in Eastern or whether we're in the Water Authority. So it's just not the thing. And they also worry that we don't want to increase water bills elsewhere. And what our argument is that we've been subsidizing everyone else for decades, and that this is just people paying the actual costs of it, because we've been paying for all this infrastructure that we've never touched, never used. Not one drop of water has ever gone through it to serve our region, but we've been, well, more recently, unhappily paying it. And anyway, the increase is very small, is dwarfed by the rate increases. Right now, the Water Authority's rate increases, 14% was proposed. Now they've used some new math to get it down under 10%. But we're talking about a 1.5 to 2% increase. Every year they're doing 8 or 10% increases. And so if people are worried about water bills, they shouldn't be focused on detachment. They should focus on the Water Authority. They also claimed that, and they were adamant about this yesterday, as I'm sure Ann heard, that we're going to somehow impact the San Joaquin, Sacramento Bay Delta area, and that we're going to be taking more water from that. And we've analyzed this. We analyzed it before we took our action. The reality is that we don't control what mix of water we get. The Water Authority doesn't control what mix of water they get. Eastern doesn't control what mix of water they get. Met does. The Water Authority says, well, we have our Colorado River water rights, but that water is turned over to Metropolitan Lake Havasu. It becomes Met's water in Lake Havasu. That's how the exchange agreement works. And Met delivers whether Colorado River or State Water Project water based on whatever supply is better. Over the last couple of years, we've been 100% Colorado water. In about 2 months, we're going to start seeing a blend go way up to where later this year we'll be at 100% state project water. As I'm sure maybe you saw, they've been filling Diamond Valley Lake with state project water, and they expect it to be full, topped up by the end of this water year. And so it's just basically factually wrong. And Metropolitan sent documents in saying, yeah, this is just incorrect. It won't change an iota how Met plans water, because whatever demands we have, they're fulfilling them now. It's not like a new demand. It's just going to be invoiced to a different agency. The Water Authority is worried about losing their voting power at Met, and this gets politicians really riled up for some reason. Well, they're politicians. The reality is the attachment reduced their voting power by 0.23% from 17.44 to 17.21. Actually, that was from 2 years ago, but it's still about the same amount. We analyzed, and my poor executive secretary did it, went through the last nearly 1,000 votes at Met over the last 10 years, and only 3 would have changed. 2 were just procedural votes to change that agenda, and 1 was the vote for their last general manager, the current general manager. He won by a margin of like 0.2%, 0.3%, something like that. A terrible policy decision for any elected board to hire their leader on such a split vote. You know, I'd hate to have his job, because he knows that he's one vote away from losing his job. But the reality is it's a huge nothing burger. About 86% of the votes at Met are all unanimous. And so to say that this 0.2 to 0.3% change is going to somehow put San Diego in a worse off spot, I'd say if that's what it takes, if that what makes your position more weak, your policy suggestions are weak, not the voting thing. And again, I talked about the County Water Authority and their arguments to make it a countywide vote. You know, if it's a countywide vote, it's both very expensive to operate that from our end, and we don't win that vote because there's only 19,000 people in Rainbow, and there's millions down south, and it's just you never get that vote. So in summary, this is about fairness, both for us and everyone down south to pay the true cost of water. We've been paying for things that we have not been using, but we've been paying for it for years. And the increase on the Water Authority's costs have been really damaging to our ratepayers and our agricultural base, which is also hurting the county due to less carbon capture and all the benefits you see from having a vibrant avocado grove over 20 acres or just dead stumps. So we anticipate we're going to save $7 to $10 million a year. LAFCO had it at about 7.6. We think it might be a little more, especially as the rates go up. And then we look forward to being able to hold flat or lower rates when we go to Eastern. It really depends on the impact fee, exit fee, and the impact in other districts is minimal. The exit fee goes for 5 years to cover the net revenue loss. And interestingly, the economist from Berkeley who studied this for LAFCO, they asked him if there's to be an exit fee, how long would such an exit fee take? And he looked at, for normal planning horizons, anywhere from 3 to 10 years is appropriate. More than 10 years isn't appropriate because you can't predict exact demands and things like that. But the agency needs time to adjust. Well, we've been over 4 years since we notified them of our intention to detach. By the time we get through this LAFCO process, it's probably another year at least before we actually physically detach and stop paying the water authority. And then we're going to pay the differential in cost for the next 5 years. So that'll be 10 full years that the water authority's held whole. And if you can't manage a 1.5% to 2% reduction in your revenue over 10 years, the problem is not with detachment. The problem is with your agency. So yesterday, as I mentioned, we met for nearly 7 hours. Dozens of farmers expressed support. The California Avocado Commission came down and said, hey, this is not right. I spoke to the mayor of Escondido, who was in favor of our detachment, and he told me he went and talked to the farmers in Escondido and said, hey, what do you guys think of this? They were all in support. They say, yeah, whatever everybody can do to support, because they understand that that minor cost increase that's related to detachment, which won't even take place for at least 5 years, is dwarfed by the other things. Only one other water authority member agency showed up to oppose, and that's important. But the motion for approval was made and seconded. Supervisor Desmond made the motion, and Barry Willis from Alpine Fire seconded it. But then after some discussion, Supervisor Anderson made a motion to table until August. It was a little frustrating after that amount of time to not there. We were that close, but we're confident that we'll be able to get the additional information the commissioners need before the August meeting, and hopefully have a resolution of this by then. So that's my presentation.
Thank you, Tom. That was fascinating. It's really interesting, I think, how a water district, the stuff that goes on financially and structurally and politically, it's all intertwined, and we just don't normally think about that. So we are ready for questions. And I see, first of all, Mary Ellen, I think you asked, let's let Mary Ellen go first, Norlin, and then you'll go second. Mary Ellen, you had a question, I believe. You're on mute.
Yeah,
there you go.
In the chat. I put it in the chat. Okay. Basically, since you guys have overpaid by 50 million, can you sue them to get that back? And the settlement would probably be letting you leave for free.
You know, that's been contemplated, but you know, we think that the processes identified in the County Water Authority Act are there for us to use. And I can tell you one thing for sure: if we don't get out, there will be a lawsuit over the payments that we haven't received. Is part of their analysis. You know, a lot of the debt that the Water Authority has is about the emergency storage project, which Dawn is familiar with and is probably related to this group. We still don't have service for that. There's pump stations that were originally contemplated in 1998 that we've been paying for since then, up to the tune of $30 million, that have still not even been designed, not constructed. Everyone else in the county enjoys the benefit of that investment. We've been paying for it for 25 years and don't have it. That's going to be a problem. The number two problem with them is that we told LAFCO, hey, we should get credit. You know, if we're going to cover their costs, they're going to have some savings as well, you know, operating expenses and things like that. The Water Authority was adamant, if we leave, they will save $0 in O&M expenses. I'm like, well, wait a minute, $0. Does that mean we've been getting zero service? We've been paying customer service charges, all these other charges, but if there's no expenses on our behalf, why are we paying this? So that's a cost of service problem for them, and it will certainly be a lawsuit. So the $40 million, at least $40 million, that's supposed to be spent, the Water Authority admits in their documents that if we detach, they'll save $40 million. So that $64 million charge gets cut down to $24 million that we actually pay, because they're going to save 40 million when we detach. Because if we don't leave, if they don't start building those instantly, we're probably going to sue them anyway over rates, but we'll see.
Norlin.
I did the same thing that Mary Ellen did. I put mine in chat. Tom, kind of lessons learned. If I'm the next person trying to set up a water authority, what's the lesson? Do you negotiate harder when you're a young, desperate water district and need to join the big water district? Do you put in provisions that this is to be revised, the conditions every X number of years? And how many years? How do you avoid getting into a situation like this in the first place? Because it sounds like, in Western terms, you're lassoed and hogtied.
Well, that's essentially what the city of San Diego is trying to do. So the County Water Authority Act does give the power to the member agencies to leave. They want to change that to where it takes the whole county to let you leave. And they'll say, they're fond of saying, oh, your water bill is going to go up $1 a month. Which is not true, because it won't with the exit fee. But you lose that election. And so we're working hard with a lot of people to block AB 530. The city of San Diego, it's kind of like Sandag. If you know how Sandag operates, city of San Diego rules the roost. And everybody, all the other cities, you talk to any mayor of any city that's not named San Diego, they're not happy with Sandag because money goes into there. We had a meeting with someone from Sandag at the CSDA, and some of the people from our area were talking about challenges with bus service for the new Palomar College campus, and also interconnectivities with Bonsall High School, because there are students that need to go back and forth, and say, hey, can we get more bus service? Because we're paying the taxes, right? And they said, yeah, your roads are too windy and too small, and no, you can't have it. But they'll build a new trolley. So
there was no way to see any of this in the beginning when you were negotiating?
Well, in 1953, there was no big deal because the law said what it said. Now, maybe we should have seen it because they tried to strong arm us then. But, until about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the cost of water was so similar, it didn't make any difference. But now it's just gone bonkers.
So moving forward, is there a way, it sounds like with the state and from what I'm reading with other districts, we need to have some system for re-looking at the districts and the conditions of their membership and leaving, what you're mentioning also, on a much more regular basis as drought conditions evolve.
Yeah, so one of the things that LAFCO is going to be doing, and I'm not sure how familiar you all are with LAFCO. I know that Ann got 7 hours of it yesterday, but the Local Information Commission is supposed to do what's called a municipal service review of every public agency every 5 years under law. For whatever reason, they've never done one in the County Water Authority, and they're about to embark on their first one. One of the things they do in this municipal service review, also we call it an MSR, is they look at governance structures, and they also look at your finances. And that in the water business, you look at the Water Authority, who has a cost structure where their expenses, they have take or pay contracts for, like, they have to pay for the water whether they take it or not for about 95% of their demands. But their fixed charges are only 5% of their demands, and everything else rolls off if you reduce your demands. The city of San Diego likes this because when they build pure water, they're the biggest customer. Millions and millions and millions, dozens of millions of dollars are going to get shifted from the city of San Diego onto every other water district. And they like the process the way it is because they're the ones who are going to benefit at the expense of everyone else. I think that LAFCO will take a hard look at that. There are people who are now openly talking about whether the Water Authority needs to exist, whether it should be legislated out of existence and have Metropolitan take over the pipelines. In all the other parts of Southern California, the 7 counties of Metropolitan, no other metropolitan member agency operates like the Water Authority. You look at Municipal Water District of Orange County, that serves as the member agency for almost all of Orange County, other than I think the city of Fullerton, and Don might know. I think they have 21 employees. Central Basin Municipal Water District, all of Southeast LA County, 22 employees, something like that, very small. And the Water Authority has nearly 300. And all these grand illusions of building pipelines to the east and spending billions of dollars. It's really not a function that is really necessary. And I think they could be done a lot more efficiently.
Other questions? Kathleen. Okay, Kathleen, Rita, Dawn.
That's fine.
Oh, me first or Rita? Okay.
I saw your name first.
Okay.
Sorry, Rita.
Tom, number one, thank you for all your information. Number two, everyone who sent us some information for homework to read before this, totally valuable. And what jumped out at me was, first of all, the loss, because I know I have friends in Fallbrook who've either cut down most of their avocado trees, closed up groves. The loss of agriculture up in Fallbrook hurts us all when we don't get local produce. But Fallbrook, as you said, 70% is residential now, but Fallbrook has the lowest per capita income in North County and one of the lowest in the entire county. So the move, what I'm looking at, the move for you guys to go with the other water district, first of all, it saves a lot of our agriculture, because I do know, I have friends that have land in agriculture and they're looking at having to shut it down. One of my friends cut down most of our avocado trees during one of the droughts. That for your residents, and you have the largest, like I said, the smallest per capita, Fallbrook does, it helps those residents too.
Oh, yeah. Well, the other challenge
Kathleen,
in a water
Kathleen.
district is that in a rural water district where we have large infrastructure that was built out originally for agricultural users, is we have 380 miles of pipeline in Rainbow alone, but a very small number of people. And the agricultural water demands paid for a lot of the costs that now when we model ag going away, everybody's bills are going to go up 25% a year ad infinitum, because all that cost drops onto a smaller and smaller number of units of water. And so it gets really challenging economically if we can't preserve agriculture for the single family residents. And I think people down south think that these are all rich avocado farmers up here, but there is a significant portion of low income folks in our region that also be protected.
Rita. Oh, you just muted
You
yourself.
muted yourself.
So if you go with Eastern, we're going to continue to have droughts, climate change issues. We won't have many years like this one where the water came down. What's going to make things change, or Eastern doesn't start sticking to you at some point as they become more urban and things change in that district and the politics? I mean, are you trading one devil for another?
You know, that's something we considered carefully, but when you consider the cost structure of Eastern, you know, and as I was talking about earlier about cost of service, and water rates have to follow the cost of service. The Water Authority admits they're giving us zero service, but charging us an arm and a leg. Eastern had $11 an acre foot. It's been the same for like 30 years because we don't touch any of their facilities. They don't do anything for us. Metropolitan pipeline comes through. So now Metropolitan's rates will rise, but those also rise on the Water Authority. And so it's 6 1 half dozen another. If Eastern was to try to put some exorbitant charges on us, even though they provide us a service, we would be able to defeat that in court pretty quickly. Now, as far as the changing climate and supplies, it's going to be bad all over in Southern California or in the future. We're going to have wetter wets and drier dries. The Colorado is going to get a big haircut. The Water Authority thinks they have the most secure water rights in the world, but anybody who's seen what's going on in the Colorado realizes that's going to change. So we're all going to have to deal with less. I think that the statewide level, we need to build a lot more storage for years like this so that we can capture that water. But I think in the future, it's going to be a lot of potable reuse, like Dawn's going to talk about later today. And then we're also going to have to conserve. And I think that at some point, the water bill situation, we're going to have to find a different way to fund infrastructure rather than on volumetric rates for water, because it's just unsustainable. And I think that the ways that we can charge are limited by law, that there needs to be more funding for pipeline replacements and our capital programs that come from different sources like the state or federal government. But that money is scarce these days.
Thank you. Dawn?
So Tom, I was just going to ask you, it's a little bit off of just a specific topic, but you showed that one chart with the divergence of County Water Authority and Met. And I was wondering if that takes into consideration also, you know, you talked about pure water coming online in the near future. You've got the East County potable reuse. Of course, we've got the Oceanside potable reuse. So that's all water loss, revenue loss
Yeah.
for county water authority. So do you see that diversion becoming even larger because of that?
Yes, that was using the Water Authority's forecast, which they are purposely ignoring that. Matter of fact, the CFO for City of San Diego brought it up at the Water Authority board meeting. They said, hey, how come your forecast only goes out to 2030? Because their demand forecast, because there's going to be a big drop off at that point from pure water. The Water Authority this year is budgeting to sell 360,000 acre feet of water. The Water Authority has take or pay contracts for 330,000 acre feet of water. So if there's a 10% reduction in demand next year over their forecast, they're going to pay for water they don't get. And then when pure water comes online, we're going to be paying 10, 30, $100 million a year for water we don't get. It's just the price is going to go whoop. It's going to hit an exponential factor here. And so we've been stressing. I've been on the Water Authority board for 8.5 years. I've been pushing since day one. They said all your forecasts wrong. I've been doing this a long time. I made wrong forecasts in the late 90s. Don probably did. We all did. We were all wrong from the late 90s through the early 2000s, thinking, hey, demand's going to go up. Come around 2007, 2008, with the price of water going up, we saw demand start dropping off sharply, and it's been going down ever since. And the Water Authority is refusing to admit that, literally refusing when board members say, hey, let's look at a lower demand. They say, no, population is going to increase, so demands will go up. Well, over the last 30 years, population's increased steadily in San Diego County, but demands have gone steadily down. And so it's really an inverse relationship, if you ask me. But there's a typhoon coming to the Water Authority, and it's going to be a mess.
Looks like it.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? Connie, you have your hand up.
No.
Yes, you don't. Oh, no, you know what? That's my marker. Oh, sorry. Okay, I have a question. Has the permanent agricultural rate been of any help at all to your farmers over the years?
Certainly. The permanent special agricultural water rate, it basically gives us met reliability. That's what they get. We saw when they changed it from the transitional special ag rate to the permanent special ag rate, they added a whole bunch more rules around it and different licensing and permitting you needed. And so we saw as all of our small 1 or 2, 3 acre groves just said it's too much hassle for them to do that. So we saw about a 50% reduction in enrollment, not 50% volumetrically, but definitely numerically, because one of the things you got to be in the Farm Bureau's irrigated lands program, but a lot of people don't like the Farm Bureau, and they cost a couple $1,000 a year to be a member. And so they were looking at the math. We had a spreadsheet that our customer service folks would go with. If you're an ag customer, if you're using under, a large number, if you're not using a certain level of water, it's not economically feasible for the discount you get to pay for the other regulatory and other sorts of things, licenses and things like that you got to get. So, but the other problem with that is that the PSAR program is pegged to met delivery. So a little bit I talked about how the Water Authority has 330,000 acre feet of take or pay supplies that comes from the IID transfer, the canal lining water, and the desal plant.
Right.
And so they've only got like 30,000 acre feet of met water they're buying. If that goes down to zero, PSAR disappears. It's only based on that met rate. And so I can foresee a future really quickly that our farmers will have to pay the full rate, which will put them all out of business.
Yeah.
And so everybody will get less than PSAR when we go to Eastern. And then we'll work on our own, depending on how the finances work out at LAFCO, another interruptible rate for our farmers if they want to accept some lower reliability that we can give them even lower costs. But that's TBD because we don't have the numbers yet.
Got it. Okay, are there any other questions? I want to thank you, Tom, for coming. That was fascinating. It really was. I mean, it's just snake pits with all this stuff going on. My goodness.
Yeah, the facts and law are on our side. The politics are the hard part.
It's always the hard part, no matter what you do.
All right, well, thanks for having me. I'll be happy to come back anytime.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And thanks, Don, for setting it up for us.